Case 1. Cropsey. Cropsey was the name of a boogeyman in Staten Island, New York. For decades, children were warned about Cropsey, a shadowy figure said to lurk around the abandoned hospitals and tunnels in the area. According to legend, Cropsey was an escaped mental patient, sometimes described with a hook for a hand, who would snatch children that wandered too far from home and drag them into the maze of tunnels beneath the decaying buildings. Parents use the story to keep kids from misbehaving or staying out at night, and most people believed Cropsey was nothing more than a scary bedtime story. But in the 1970s and 1980s, Staten Island experienced a series of real child disappearances that made residents revisit the Cropsey legend. In 1987, the community was shocked when a man named Andre Rand was arrested and linked to one of the missing children. Rand had once worked as a janitor at the Willowbrook State School, the same defunct institution near where the Cropsey legend was set. By the time of his arrest, Willowbrook had been closed for its horrific conditions, and Rand was homeless, living in a campsite on its abandoned grounds. A month earlier, a 12-year-old girl named Jennifer Schweiger, who had Down syndrome, had vanished. After a 35-day search, volunteers discovered her body buried in a shallow grave on those grounds. The man lurking in the ruins was real, and he turned out to be far more dangerous than a ghost story. Andre Rand's criminal history made the story even more disturbing. He had a long record of crimes against children. In 1969, Rand went to jail for trying to assault a 9-year-old girl. In 1983, he served time for kidnapping an entire bus full of children from a YMCA day camp and driving them to an airport for no clear reason. Thankfully, no harm came to those kids. Over the years, several children on Staten Island had disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and Rand was a suspect in at least 4 other cases. These included a 5-year-old girl who vanished in 1972, a 7-year-old girl who went missing in 1981, an 11-year-old girl in 1983, and even a 22-year-old man with intellectual disabilities who was last seen with Rand in 1984. At the time, there was not enough evidence to charge him in those cases, but the pattern was unsettling. It seemed the real Cropsey had been active in the community for years, hiding in plain sight. Rand was eventually convicted for the kidnappings of Jennifer Schweiger and another girl, Holly Ann Hughes, who had disappeared in 1981. There was not enough physical evidence to convict him of murder, but he received 2 separate 25 years to life sentences for the kidnappings. Those sentences, served back to back, virtually ensured that Rand will spend the rest of his life in prison. He will not be eligible for parole until 2037, when he would be in his 90s. To this day, Rand denies harming anyone, but most Staten Islanders believe the evidence and witness accounts point to his guilt. Some local investigators even suspected Rand might not have acted alone. There were unconfirmed rumors that he was involved in a satanic cult or a group of other criminals who lurked in the tunnels beneath Willowbrook. 2 local filmmakers released a documentary titled Cropsey in 2009, exploring how the legend and the true story were connected. There really was a monster in the dark woods of Staten Island, and his name was Andre Rand. Case 2. Purple Achy. In Britain, especially around the Merseyside area, kids whispered stories about a monster known as Purple Achy. The legend sounded strange and almost unbelievable. He was said to be a huge man who chased teenage boys and asked to touch their muscles. In the 1980s and 1990s, school children spread the story everywhere. Most outsiders thought he was just an urban myth, but the legend was true. Purple Achy was a nickname of a real man named Aiken Whale Aerobeak, and he did have a very strange obsession with muscles. Aerobeak stood around 6 feet 5 inches tall and was very muscular. Starting in the 1980s, he began approaching young men and teenage boys in disturbing ways. He would talk to them about weightlifting or bodybuilding, then ask if he could feel their biceps or calf muscles. Sometimes he even asked them to do squats while carrying him on their back to test their strength. If they refused, he could become angry or pushy. He did this openly in public places, which made the encounters even more disturbing. Over time, almost everyone in the Liverpool area had heard of someone who had met Purple Achy. The stories were so bizarre that many believed it had to be a joke, but those who had been approached knew he was real. His notoriety began with a tragic case in 1986. A 16-year-old boy named Gary Kelly had been approached by Aerobeak, who had allegedly harassed him, touched his muscles, and demanded he do lifts while carrying him. The incident left Gary shaken. A few days later, Gary was at a train station with friends when he saw Aerobeak again, watching him from a distance. Terrified, Gary tried to escape by climbing onto the tracks to hide in an idle train. In the chaos, he stepped on a live electrical rail and was fatally electrocuted. Before his death, Gary told police that he was running away from Aerobeak. Aerobeak was arrested and convicted of manslaughter because Gary's death had been caused by his menacing presence. But in 1988, the conviction was overturned on appeal. The court ruled that standing on a platform and looking at someone was not enough to be considered a direct unlawful act. Aerobeak was even awarded compensation for false imprisonment. Some argued that the case had racial overtones, since his nickname Purple Akey was said to be from his very dark skin. The legal outcome did not end the legend. If anything, it made it worse. Through the 1990s and 2000s, his reputation grew along with his criminal record. Dozens of young men came forward claiming they had been followed or approached by him. In 2003, Aerobeak was convicted on 15 counts of harassment and witness intimidation. He had stalked athletes, including rugby players, and even threatened families of victims who reported him. A judge described him as strange and obsessive and said he was a danger to young men. After serving time in prison, Aerobeak was released, but quickly returned to his old habits. By 2006, the police sought a special court ordered against him, known as Sexual Offenses Prevention Order. This ban was written specifically for him, prohibited him from touching or measuring muscles, from asking anyone to do squats, from loitering near gyms or schools, and even from entering certain towns in northwest England without permission. It was one of the most oddly specific court orders ever made. For a while, this kept him away from people, but in 2016, he challenged the order in court. He argued that his behavior, however odd, was not proven to be inappropriate and that the restrictions were too harsh. A judge agreed and lifted the ban. That meant Purple Akey was free again to move about, as long as he did not harass anyone. By this point, his reputation had grown beyond Merseyside. He had become a national urban legend. He was featured in a BBC documentary called The Man Who Squeezes Muscles, which showed how he had become a living boogeyman. Kids joked about him in the same way they would about saying Bloody Mary in a mirror. Graffiti of his name appeared on walls. Stories spread of people seeing him in two places at once. Today, Aiken Whale Aerobeak is in his 60s. In his case, the urban legend was true, and it is still walking among us. Case 3. Lee Loyon. In the forest near the village of Mals in western Switzerland, people whispered about a ghostly wanderer. Locals called the strange creature Lee Loyon, and some even nicknamed it the Ghost of Mals. Reports began in the late 1990s, early 2000s. Hikers claimed they saw a very tall person dressed in camouflage clothing, boots, and most unsettling of all, a full gas mask covering the face. Imagine walking on a quiet forest trail and seeing someone in the distance, head hidden behind a mask with big round eyes and a respirator. Lee Loyon never spoke or attacked anyone. Witnesses said the figure walked slowly, sometimes pausing to look around, then disappearing into the trees. No one reported being harmed, but the sight alone was disturbing. Over time, Lee Loyon became a local legend. Some thought it was a hermit or a person with mental illness. Others imagined it was something supernatural or even an alien. Many believed it was just a scary story to keep children from wandering into the forest until they or someone they knew saw the masked figure for themselves. For years, Lee Loyon was often discussed but never clearly seen. That changed in September 2013 when an amateur photographer finally captured a picture. The Swiss newspaper Lee Matin published the image on the front page. It showed exactly what people had been describing: a tall person in a camouflage coat and boots, wearing an old-fashioned gas mask. walking along a forest path in broad daylight. The photograph caused a sensation. It proved the ghost of Malls was real, but it raised even more questions. Who was behind the mask, and why were they doing this? Not long after the photo went viral, the mystery deepened. Hikers found a camouflage coat neatly folded on a trail, with a gas mask placed on top of it. Alongside the clothing was a written note titled, "Death Certificate and Testament of the Ghost of Malls." The letter, apparently from Loyon, explained that the walks had been a personal ritual, described as a kind of happiness therapy. The writer said they have never met harm, but the sudden media attention and fear from the public had made it impossible to continue. Since 2013, there have been no confirmed sightings. The man simply vanished. No one came forward to reveal themselves. Some believe Loyon was a person with severe social anxiety or a medical condition that led them to hide their face. Others think it was an eccentric man from nearby town who dressed this way for comfort or amusement. What makes Loyon so haunting is that the mystery was only partly solved. Locals no longer had to worry about the silent masked wanderer, but they may have also driven an eccentric, harmless person into hiding. Today, Loyon is remembered as one of Europe's strangest modern urban legends. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives into internet mysteries and disturbing cases.